There we go. We are worldwide, and we are back. It is Jason Martinez, and there he is from sunny Florida down at Philly Spring Training, drawing all the difficult assignments. And when we do Philly Spring Training, we got to do the intro in the great Howard Callis voice. Anthony Sanfilippo. What's up,
Would,
man?
would always want him to say that, man. I would always
Oh,
want Harry to introduce me at some point, just because of the way my name is lyrical, right?
well, he made a 2-syllable name 5 syllables. Kim Batista. With your name, I mean, that's just a field day for him back in
Well,
his
it
day.
would have been like Mickey Moore when he did Mickey Moore and Deanie. It would have been the
Yeah.
same concept, right? It would have been the same thing. So
I think the same exact intonation and pacing. Mickey Moore and Deanie. Yeah, he was so
yes,
great.
it
Damn,
was awesome. It was
we
awesome.
were just spoiled in this town. It's episode 80 of Stick to Hockey Live. We haven't done one in forever. And, one of the byproducts of you guys doing Snow the Goalie at the game now that I don't like it is
What's
I
that?
think I've watched as much hockey with you as just about anybody else in my life. But now you're over there on the other side at the balcony, and we don't hang out at the press box anymore and
You
break
gotta
bread and talk about the game and solve the problems.
you got to come hang with us, because I know Smitty is now set up, just on the other side of the wall
Yep.
of us now. So maybe you got to move your operation over there as well, and then we can all just we can just make that, like, it could be our own Radio Row, like the Super Bowl, right? We can
Yeah.
just have that thing
Podcast
going
corner.
on over there. Yeah, broadcast corner, exactly. Exactly.
Podcast in the coffin corner. Yeah. But I'll have to get up there because I do my stuff from downstairs in the locker room, just off the tunnel, and I see a lot post game when you're coming down to tape some interviews. But I mean, we solved all the world's problems, and certainly the Flyers' problems many a year sitting in
Yeah.
that press box. But obviously today was a very big day. Deadline's coming up on Friday, so we're less than 48 hours away. But we started to see a lot of action around the NHL, and action spurs action. And we saw some big trades beginning to happen here in advance of the deadline. And Danny Briere took care of a couple of nice pieces of business today. Are you surprised at all at what happened today and what transpired with Walker and the extension to Sealer and the return?
No, not at all. Obviously they were going to, in order to get the only thing I wasn't kind of aware of what they were going to have to do. I mean, I knew their price was a first round pick for Sean Walker. That's what they wanted, and Colorado was willing to give it to them. The only thing I wasn't aware of is that it would have to come with a salary dump, which they took in Ryan Johansson, who they immediately put on waivers as it happened. So, but no, and I didn't know it was going to be a 2025 first, which actually is better in my mind, because it's a better draft. Yes, it's lottery protected. So if Colorado collapses for some reason and they're in the top 10, then that means that pick conveys in 2026 instead. But I don't foresee that happening. I think Colorado is a contender for the foreseeable future. So it is going to probably be a 2025 first rounder. And yeah, so I think that's a really good get for Sean Walker. When you think about what he was when he came in here, Jay, he was just he was the replacement body in the Ivan Provorov trade, the 3-team deal involving LA and Columbus, and he was the throw-in body. And to have that turn into, within 7 months, have that turn into a first-round draft pick is incredible. I mean, that's great asset management and on the part of Danny Briere. As far as Sealer, just real quick on that, there's going to be a lot of people questioning why you're committing 4 years to Nick Sealer. But I think that there's great value in a player like that for your team, and especially for the Flyers. So I look at it from two perspectives with him, Jay, and you tell me what you think. The first is they don't really have the depth yet at defense for young defensemen to be ready to go in the next few years, or to be major contributors, I should say, in the next few years, right? A guy like Emil Andre will probably be in that lineup at some point. Oliver Bonk's going to be coming, but he's at least probably 2 seasons away.
Yeah, so he's a right side guy.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, these are guys that are down the line more,
yeah,
right? So who is playing defense for you until that point? So you take a guy like Sealer and you're giving him, a nice raise, a nice bump, but he also is a veteran. And he plays the style of game. He brings that toughness, man, that allows your other defensemen to get up the ice, that allows them to go and be aggressive and play the way that this team plays. and he could kind of protect them a little bit because of the way that he plays, blocking shots, being physical, not afraid to drop the gloves if it need be. I think all of those things are incredibly valuable and adds to what this team has as far as going forward in the next few years. Now, if when Mishkov gets here in a few years and you think you're a Stanley Cup contender, maybe Nick Sealer's not part of that group.
Maybe he's your 7.
But if that's okay, by the time you get to the 4th year of that deal, a $2.7 million contract is what you're paying 6s and 7s in the NHL.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a really good signing.
Yeah, and you can ship that off with a 3rd-round draft pick to get somebody to take it if you really need the 2.7 on the cap. And by the way, on a rising cap, which is going to be rising this year significantly for the first time because the escrow payments that the players deferred are finally paid in full. So we're going to see a big raise in the cap. On Walker, real quick, I think the interesting thing here is I like the 25 pick as well, and here's why. You already have 2 in this draft. Now you have 2 in the 25 draft, and I can't draft 3 guys in the first round and 3-4 guys in the first round of 1 draft. I can't have them all coming up at the same time, off their ELC, off their RFA contract. You want to stagger guys coming in so that you don't have it all to do in one offseason, because I think that's when you can get some attrition. I think it's been part of the problem that what's happened in Toronto is they had to pay everybody at the kind of the same time, and then they brought Tavares as well. But so I like that stagger, and that is a better draft as far as, I'm not a draft guy. I don't know. They say it is. It's a deeper draft. So, and that pick is not going to defer to 26. If they're a lottery team, then they got struck by lightning. Or Patrick Waugh quit. But anyway, but so the Sealer thing is fascinating because, a lot of us here didn't know much about, Sean Walker, because we don't sit up at 10:30 at night watching Kings games. He had one decent season out there, pretty good. But, when you watch the Kings, you think Drew Doughty. You're watching Doughty, right?
Right.
And he comes here, and he played incredibly well. He was a perfect fit for the system. New place, contract year. I think it was like the perfect storm to get the most out of him. I just wasn't sure that it was ever repeatable, which is why I didn't like, a 3.7, 4 or 5 year term for Sean Walker. I love the player here, and he fit like a glove. But to get the 1st round pick back, and this is the Ivan Provorov trade, just yielding more and more, return by the minute. Helgi Grans, you look at obviously the 1st round pick that they now have, from this deal. And it's just, this was a really, 2000 ELO chess kind of play by Danny Briere.
No, it really was. It really was a smart move on his part. And I looked at it and said, there was a chance, and there really was, let's be honest, there was a chance that Sean Walker would have re-signed here. I think that went out. I think that went out the window when Ristolainen got hurt. Yeah. Because the Flyers, from the people that I've talked to, and who I talked to, the people I've talked to have said that they were going to try and move Ristolainen, even if it was eating some of that salary before the trade deadline. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, if they were able to do that, then they would have thought about it, right? You can think about maybe bringing back Walker at $4 million a year and maybe for 4 years, right? That's kind of where they looked at it and said, that's the value for him.
Especially if you only retained $1 million on Risto, because then you're right where you were. Same
right,
number.
Exactly. You're just extending him, right? So I think it became a situation then once Ristolainen gets hurt and he's not able to come back, it became, painfully obvious that you couldn't carry both that contract and sign Sean Walker and have both of them locked into the future, because then all of a sudden you lose leverage, right? You lose, even if you want to move Ristolainen in the summer, which I still think they will, having 2 guys with that contract, with the very similar contracts, other teams are going to look at it and go, well, you have to move one of them.
Yeah, you have no choice. Your hands are
so their value is completely gone. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's, you looked at it and said, okay, maybe Walker wanted 5 years. You weren't willing to go that far. Maybe he wanted a little bit more money than you were willing to pay. I don't know. Maybe he would have come back. Who knows? I think Sealer came back a little bit on his number. So, that could be an agent GM game that you're playing. But the reality of it was you couldn't give him what he wants to look for on the free agent market.
Yeah,
so
you got one chance at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to pivot at that point, right? Jay, you have to go back and say, okay, now we have to move this guy. And it's what you thought all along. you hate doing it in the fact that you're trying to cling to a playoff spot, but you have to look at big picture. And big picture is this season is not the season you're going to compete for a Stanley Cup. So even if it means taking a step back here in the last month of the season and missing the playoffs, that's okay, because this creates a better spot for you down the line. But you still are going to keep most of this team together. So if they can hang on, now you got your cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah.
Because you get them playoff experience.
Best of both worlds.
And you got a great asset in return. So I think Danny really played this well.
Yeah, and I look at it through the Drysdale acquisition, and that trade with Cutter Gauthier is a part of it too, because if they truly, and I'm not sure that, we've heard, we like Sanheim on the right side, and that's the spot for him. We prefer him there. I don't know that that's true. That's the reality right now. So I think it's easy to say that that's what you want when you don't have another option right now, but we'll see. But to me, Sealer playing with a guy like Drysdale, who's undersized. And I agree with you. I think having a guy like Sealer makes everybody bigger, makes everybody tougher, because he is the accountability machine out there,
right,
on the blue line. And frankly, you need size on the blue line. They don't have it. Sanheim's big, but he doesn't play a physical big right. style. Drysdale's not big. York is never going to be an overly physical player too, and he's undersized. So you need some size back there. And did they go the extra year on Sealer to keep the cap hit down? Players love term. We know that.
Right.
They love to stay in the league. They love term. Is that over 3 if they go 3 years?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's why the number got to what it was.
Yeah.
Because I think that Sealer's camp was above 3 and closer to 4 is what they were trying to get if the deal was going to be 2 or 3 years. But the fact that the Flyers were willing to give up the 4th year, I think allowed that AAV number to come down a little bit. And so it ended up being a deal that worked both ways. Yeah,
it really did. When you look at it now, some of the assets they grab here, we talked about the draft pick in 2025. Is there a chance these assets don't have to be used as your draft picks? You can use them in other deals. Maybe not here at the deadline, but could some of this equity or asset management be used in the offseason to grab a player that they feel like they really need, either a blue liner or somebody up front, a center, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think these picks are in play. I don't think they are in play before Friday. At this point, there was a question. I put a question out on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you want to call it. I put it out earlier. Would they want to flip, the assets from this deal to Ottawa for Jacob Chychrun, which was reported out of Ottawa, and I have a feeling that report came from the same place I got it from. That was something that the Flyers had inquired about it. I have since been told that the Ottawa ask for Jacob Chychrun is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, that may come down by Friday, though.
It could, right, and that could change. So something could change. It's still, we are recording this on Wednesday night, and so by Friday at 3:00, that price tag can change if Ottawa is motivated to move Jacob Chychrun. If they're not, and if it's just like only if we get X will we move him, then he's not going to go anywhere, right? But as of right now, and these things, Jay, I think what the public doesn't quite get sometimes is that these things change so fast.
Yeah, they do.
So fast. Like, you may have a conversation with another team and think that you're onto something. Then you make the deal that you feel like you have to make to get that done. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, we're going to try something else now. Or this other team's come into play, and I think we're going to go in that direction. And like from minute to minute, it changes. It's a real soap opera behind the scenes, like what goes on with this stuff.
Well, the other thing too is sometimes GMs lay in wait. They look like they think a deal's getting ready to happen. They're really got their finger on the pulse, and then they are not even involved. And then they swoop in because they feel like they know what the price is. They beat it and they take the deal.
Yep.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, I mean, think about the names that were linked to Sean Walker prior to today: Edmonton, Toronto, Tampa. Did anyone hear Colorado?
No.
And then all of a sudden, Joe Sakic.
Last time I heard Colorado was for Giroux 2 years ago.
Right, and then all of a sudden, Colorado is here, making the deal with a first-round pick that they're willing to give up for Sean Walker. Think about that for a second. Now, they went all in, right? Because they traded for Casey Middlestat from Buffalo as well.
Yeah.
And then they traded for Sean Walker. They really went all in here to be a team to win the West, which is, the West is really good. There's 4 or 5 teams out there that can come out of that thing.
Agreed.
And they bolstered that up. But to think that Sean Walker is worth a first round pick
as a rental.
As a rental is amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me.
Well, part of it is that Johansson contract. In a first blush, you go, oh shit, he's got another year after this. He's getting paid $8 million a year, although only $4 million a year from Colorado because Nashville retained half.
Half, correct.
So the Flyers have to eat the $4 million the remainder of this season, which is prorated, and then next year they wait. And I've never seen a player acquired and wavered as quickly as this.
Yeah.
Was it like get the deal done so we can put him on waivers today?
Well, so it was funny. I was told by somebody out in Denver that he is so washed at this point, even though he's got 13 goals this year. Think about that. Dude, look at a player and say he's washed, like he is washed, that they don't even feel like he could play in the NHL at this point. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a situation where you send him through waivers, you send him down, and then maybe you look in the offseason. Is it, do you buy out that last year? Spread out that $4 million over a couple of years. It's only $2 million at that point. I don't know. What do you do with it?
Trade him at the deadline this year and eat half of it. Eat $2 million of the $4 million.
Yeah,
on the eat.
Yeah, see if somebody wants to take him at $2 million.
Yeah,
for next to nothing. Yeah, you could do that. You could certainly do that for sure.
The only thing I don't like about that is I take up another retention spot for a year, and I'm already retaining on Hayes, and maybe that's being penny wise and pound foolish because in the offseason, you can continue to weaponize space if you're Danny Briere and retain on players in a big deal. So maybe that's part of the equation. I'm sure it is. They got to think of every different angle of this. I mean, if a guy like Lawton got traded at the deadline, Johansson could come up and play a little bit of center, I would imagine.
The one good thing about Johansson is he can still win faceoffs, right? I think he's still a pretty good faceoff guy, right? That said, I don't think that the Flyers are really done. But at the same time, I don't think that you're going to see anything else that's blow you away deadline stuff.
Stall for like I think he wants to stay. I think he told him he wants to stay. I mean, they could say, we'll ship you somewhere for a 7th to do you a solid because you've been a pro while you're here. But I think he indicated he wants to stay here and help mentor guys and be a part of that.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think it's not even that. I think that the Flyers might add some depth. And I say that, and I know everybody's going to freak out. Like, this is a rebuild. What do you do? What do you mean? Blah, blah, blah.
You can't add, God forbid.
Yeah. So we were talking about this before we went live, right? The Flyers have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks in the first 2 rounds. Or I'm sorry, 8 picks in the first 2 rounds in the next 2 drafts.
Yep.
Okay. They have 2 firsts and 2 seconds this year. And 2 firsts. Oh no, 6. I keep miscounting. 2 firsts, 2 seconds this year. 2 firsts, 2 seconds next year. I was counting the 3rd round picks as well. So they have so much up at the top of the drafts that if they were to give up a 5th rounder or a 6th rounder to add another player to be in the rotation or to maybe add a backup goalie, it's nothing. It's no big deal, and that kind of helps the current group a little bit. Right? If they're not going out and spending any of these top assets, that's not what they're going to do. But if they go out and trade a 5th rounder or something, so be it. Right? I mean, is that the end of the world? I don't think so.
Round pick, the chances of him playing 200 NHL games in is about 3%.
That's not. I think it's lower than.
Yeah, and you can go look. Kirill Kaprizov was taken in the 6th round. Look, and I know there's those guys. Joe Pavelski was taken in the 100th round, and he's still playing in the 03 draft. But that happens, but it's the odds are not with you.
Correct.
It's a literal lottery ticket, a Powerball ticket, not even a pick 3. Where you got some decent odds. And
they have extras down there. They have an extra 5 in 2025. They have an extra 6 in next year, 12 this year, 24's draft. Like they can move one of those and really still be well ahead of the game as far as and keep in mind the other thing is there's only so many contracts you can give out, you can carry. You're limited to 50 total contracts. Not to say you're going to sign out all these guys, but the point is that, you're right. And unless they are in college, you're going to look to get them signed sooner rather than later, so they can start playing in the AHL once they hit age 20, right?
Yeah, so you don't want to lose them if the college player decides to wait it out.
Yeah, exactly. So you gotta the players, that you draft have to kind of see a path. Otherwise, it's gonna be like, maybe we don't want to go there. So you can't have too much of that. So I mean, it's wonderful to have 600 draft picks, but you can't use them all. So if you have to
Yeah.
add a little, if you give up one to add a little bit of something here, nothing major, then I think that that's totally fine.
Yeah, Jimmy Puckett's at Uncle Betsy on Twitter tweeted this out the other day, and I screenshot it. I've cited it a couple times. He said some Flyers trade deadline info for you maniacs: 48 contracts, 50 is max, 2 open retention spots. Hayes has the one. 13.6 million on IR. That was Ellis, Risto, and Drysdale. 1.66 million buyout cap hit. 24-25 on Tony DeAngelo. 10 picks in this draft. The Columbus second conditional. Then we also have to add in the Jay O'Brien compensatory pick too, that they'll have at the end of the second round. And then the 4 UFAs, Sealer, Stahl, Walker, and Sandstrom, obviously. Walker is now gone. Sandstrom's probably not going anywhere. And we'll see if they grab, some kind of veteran goaltender that I know Sandstrom played well in that last game. Is that enough to go, okay, we feel comfortable with it? And with 15 games in 30 days of this month and a murderer's row coming up?
Yeah, well, that's the big thing, right? I mean, when you look at it, when you look at the games that are coming up, I have a hard time finding games that I would feel comfortable with Felix Sandstrom in net. San Jose might be the only one until the end of the month.
Montreal and Chicago at the end of the month. Yeah, but you have that after San Jose. How about this 7-game stretch, Ant? Toronto, Boston, Toronto, Carolina, Boston, Florida, Rangers.
And it's Florida and Tampa before it. And Florida and Tampa right before
this week, yeah. Yep.
This week, right? Yep. So, that's 9 out of 10 that are just against the best teams at the top of, at this time of year. I don't know. With
absolute animals on their team, then the Flyers have had a hard time stopping elite talent.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, Jay. That's it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Where this all goes, I don't know. I don't know what we see before Friday. Like you said, I think there could be an acquisition of a skater, I'll say. Probably a forward, and then maybe a goaltender as well, to give them a little bit more of a chance with a little bit of attrition here. Is Drysdale coming back? What are you hearing there, Ant? Week to week, what does that mean?
Yeah, they were kind of hoping for a month from the time he went out, so it would be the end of March. So this
about 10 days already, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not going to really do a reevaluation until next week, and I think at that point they'll make a determination as to can they get him back. I think that we're not going to hear. I don't think we're going to hear anything until this gauntlet of games is over.
Yeah.
And by that, I think it's the reality of, are they still in a playoff spot after those 9 games or 9 out of 10? And if they are, then Jamie Drysdale will find a way to get back into the lineup before the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they can get in. Because it does, the schedule lightens up in April.
It does.
Right?
You got the Islanders, Buffalo, Columbus, Montreal, Rangers, Jersey, Washington to end it. And I feel like the Rangers and Washington will be out of that mix. And New Jersey and Washington, Rangers might be just playing out the string because they're going to have the number 1 seed locked up.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So like, if you're still in it after that gauntlet, then Jamie Drysdale will play.
Yeah.
If you're not, if you've had a meltdown and you're falling out of the spot and you're now chasing, I could see them saying to Jamie Drysdale, don't even rush it back. Get it strengthened, get it better, and we'll see you in training camp.
Yeah, risk reward. We don't want you rehabbing an injury in the offseason. We'd rather you preparing for a season.
Correct.
Sean messages in and said, do you see a Zegras trade to Philly as a real possibility, a fit under Torts? I don't see it. I know he's a big, sexy name and an enormously skilled player. I wonder about, he's got a lot to learn away from the puck and all of those things. And I know he's a highlight reel, but I don't know that he's a fit here for what they're trying to build.
No, I don't. And I do think that I
don't think he's a center either, by the way.
No, he's certainly not. He's definitely a winger, and they need centers, right? Let's be honest. More than anything else, they need centers. Let's not forget that Bob Murray is a senior advisor here.
Yep.
Okay, the guy knows the Anaheim situation, knows everything about them, and if they were interested in Zegras, I'm not certain that they have anything that they could give up or they would be willing to give up to bring him in and cross their fingers and hope that he fits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everything that you just said,
much risk,
ton of skill, but why risk it? Like, why risk it? If it doesn't work out, you're still bereft centers. You still don't have a number one defenseman. And, that's what you're hoping to get with all of this.
And the
All this
cost per
draft
acquisition
capital.
for him is going to be through the Pat Verbeek is going to be driving a huge ask in a return for him.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. You would have to give up a lot of these assets that everybody's excited that they have right now.
Yeah.
And you're not certain that it's a fit for this team. And why do that? Why give up those assets for a guy that's I don't know.
Yeah.
When you can, if you need to go get a player. And look, this isn't the time to do that anyway. I think that that kind of player you're looking to get maybe next year, after next season, right? So let's see what happens.
And last thing for you, as Brian puts on the screen, everybody is buddies with Jonesy. How much of what they've been able to accomplish is the combination of them being a good team, therefore gaining leverage? Their players are playing well. Teams want players that are playing well, and they don't have to move them because they're in a playoff spot. And then you couple that, like we didn't hear Colorado. This front office, this group's ability to operate under cloak and dagger. Cutter Gauthier, nobody knew that. Knew that was coming. Then you have obviously Michkov playing air hockey or bubble hockey at the training facility in the summer. Their ability to operate under cloak and dagger is impressive. And to me, that's a respect that another GM and hockey front office has for the team they're talking to, that it doesn't get out on either side.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that it does come to, it comes down to what Jonesy's relationships are with these people and with other teams, and that he's developed over his long career as a broadcaster, a national broadcaster, and being around and talking to absolutely everybody. When you really think about it, like you look at this situation, you say you have a first-time president, a first-time general manager. These guys should be getting taken advantage of by other teams. And so far, every step of the way, you sit there and go, well, that was a good move. Well, that was a good signing. Well, that was a good draft pick. And you're like, well, wait a second. If they're supposed to be wet behind the ears and not do well because they're their first time at it and they got to learn learn the ropes before they can really be successful, well, why are they successful so far? And the reason they're successful so far is exactly what you're just saying. It's because there's great respect for Keith Jones around the league, and to a slightly lesser extent, Danny Briere, but there is respect for Danny as well. And that they're willing. Look, we hear so many things behind the scenes, right? We know, who all the rumors and stuff like that and everything, but they are really trying to control the big things now.
The things that
matter more than anything else. And they're really, really trying. That's what we find out about them. We may hear them, we may get them, but we're getting them like right before they happen, as opposed to hearing it weeks in advance, like we used to get all the time. Right. So that's a credit to Jonesy and to his relationship around the league.
Yeah, Brian says Briere lied about the rebuild because he didn't get a 4th-round pick for Steeler. I hope Brian's kidding.
I think he's saying that very tongue-in-cheek. Yes,
I think he is as well.
Yes.
What's coming up for Snow the goalie this week? Got a game tomorrow night. Road game tomorrow night. Road game
tomorrow. So we'll probably do a morning after.
Friday morning.
Yeah, well, I mean, so Friday is going to be nuts for me down here, but that's okay. And then we'll certainly have probably a reaction to everything at the deadline. I'm going to try and get Danny's going to be down here in Tampa.
Yeah. He's going to talk on Friday afternoon, I think around 4:00.
Yeah. Down here. So, see how that goes.
Oh, that's perfect for you, huh?
Well, sometimes when you look at the schedule and you decide what's a good time to get down there, you figure if you're doing both teams, you try and make it work so that you can do both teams.
Yeah. Works out good for you, man.
Yes, it does.
Good job. Head over there. Are you Airbnb-ing Ryan Howard's old estate with the moat around it there on Clearwater Beach yet?
We drove past that today, by the way.
Isn't it the weirdest thing? Like, it's so close. You build this monstrosity of a house with a moat, but you can knock on the window of the house next to you and ask them if they have any Grey Poupon.
No.
It's so close.
No, we drove by. No, I'm actually down in Largo, which is about 15 minutes from the ballpark and 15 minutes from the beach. So it's perfectly situated. Nice little cabin that we have here. And it's good. It's a good spot.
Well, enjoy it, Ann. Thanks for doing this on short notice as well. I appreciate it. I'll get you out, and I'm going to have to say a few things about the people that were freaking out that the Flyers at the Rumors a couple of weeks ago. So I want to talk on that.
Yeah,
But
feel
hey,
free.
thanks for doing this, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Anytime.
Have a safe trip down there. There he is, Anthony Sanfilippo from Crossing Broad, the Snow the Goalie podcast as well. We appreciate him jumping on. We'll be on Friday. Anthony DeMarco and I will do a kind of a trade deadline wrap-up show at 4:00 coming up on Friday. Tried to get Ant tonight, but he just had too much going on. But great for Anthony Sanfilippo to jump in and get going here on the Stick to Hockey Live show. We really appreciate that as always. Real quick, I know that I had some back and forth with some Flyer fans a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, about them freaking out at reports, mostly about Sean Walker. Because the reports were coming out about $4.5 million times 4 years or 5 years, and people were going nuts. And Danny doesn't know what he's doing. They told us it was a rebuild. Bullshit. They bait and switched us again. And I get there's a lot of scar tissue. I do. There is definitely a lot of scar tissue, and people have PTSD from so many years of saying you're in a rebuild or retool or whatever it is, and that not being the case. So all of that considered. But look, like this guy is telling me on Twitter, I said, remember the day the Flyers Twitter was freaking out, some on Flyers Twitter, about the deadline based on the Walker rumors. Again, rumors. Then some chastised me and others for saying to react when something actually happened, not based off of silly season rumors. This is why. This is a prime example. And a guy had replied to me, and he said, God forbid we have any opinions on rumor moves put out by insiders. It's so weird that the people with podcasts, that would be me, who basically make a career speculating on the team and trying to police public speculation, largely based off what those very people are saying. I don't do the kind of the speculation thing. That's not the podcast that I do, but there's a lot that do. It's just, I work for the team. I do recaps, interviews, and analysis, and call things as I see them. But you can opine. I think opining on rumors is totally normal. Totally normal. I'm not trying to police anybody. Everybody's free to do what they want. What I'm saying is, don't take a rumor as gospel. You have to always remember this. This is the biggest key to all of it, is that information gets out with an agenda. It never gets out because somebody doesn't want it out. So whether that information comes from the club, whether that information comes from an agent, the player, anybody, another team trying to deal with it, doesn't matter. That information gets out with an agenda. It's got a reason it's coming out. And you have to remember that. There's a reason why it gets out, because somebody's hoping it getting out and reported a certain way benefits them in some way, shape, or form. So you always have to remember that. It's like in the NFL. I have a buddy who was an agent, an NFL agent, and he told me, I have a free agent. 2 teams are interested. I'm getting it out there to the insiders that 5 teams are interested, because I want it to make it my player that I'm representing. I want to make him seem more in demand so I can get a better deal for him. Like, these things happen. It's not all true. And like this guy, Dark by Design, said to me, I said to him, I'm not trying to police you, saying maybe just don't have a meltdown over speculative rumors during silly season, especially during silly season. React when something actually happened. Opining is fine. Freaking out, though, is silly, in my opinion. He said, well, people are also saying Flyers offered Walker 4 times 4.75 and he wanted more, which means the people being critical were right. Resigning him is the wrong move. They tried to do it. They maybe did try and do it. Maybe they were, like Ant said, they were trying to move Risto and they were going to keep Walker. You can't look at things as just little isolated things. You got to see all the moves on the chessboard to evaluate it. And sometimes that doesn't happen in real time or the time that we want, but it doesn't mean that if you look at it on a capsule and 4 times 4.75, I wouldn't have done that either. I wouldn't have. I don't know that they offered that. I don't. It's been reported, but again, that's just a report. That information got somewhere with an agenda. So you have to consider that. So you can be critical if you can. Hey, if they do this, if this report is true, and they're offering Walker 4 years times 4.75, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't do that. That's not a rebuild. I get that. That's opining, but freaking out. I'm done with this, G. I'm done. Blah blah blah. You got to have some patience. You got to, and I know that's hard to say. I do. Believe me, I know, because you only have so much patience. The equity of patience is out the window. I get it. I'm impatient too. Thank God this year's gone the way it has, because I couldn't have handled another year like the last 3. It's been miserable, and this has been very refreshing. And some people look at the Sealer deal and go, 4 years, that's crazy. And look, I would have rather gone 3. But if he went 3, the cap hit was going to probably be $3.3 million, in my opinion. I don't have any inside information on that. You add that 4th year, now it's below 3, it's at 2.7, and it's a very movable contract down the line as well. He's not going to block anybody. Who's he going to block? Emil Andre? Well, see what happens in the offseason. Is Zamula still here? Is Emil Andre ready for the NHL next year? I think maybe he could benefit from another year in the A, or at least some of it. So we'll see. But I think Danny Briere got 2 good pieces of business done today. 2 really good pieces. The Provorov trade keeps on giving. 2 firsts this year, 2 firsts next year, 2 seconds this year, 2 seconds next year. You can look at the 4th round picks and the 5th round picks. To me, people overvalue those picks sometimes. They're just picks. They're not likely that you're going to get a player that's really going to help you. So I think it was a good piece of business. All right, we'll be back Friday, episode 81, Anthony DeMarco, at 4 p.m. Friday. We'll break down everything trade deadline. Trade deadline wraps up at 3 o'clock on Friday as well. So might be some more moves for the Flyers and other teams chasing them in the standings. We'll see where it goes. Anonymous says, we didn't like 5 years for Risto or 4 years for Nick Delarier, and we're told to wait and see on those. I think we were right to criticize those deals. Now, those deals happened. They weren't rumored. They actually happened. And you can criticize them whether you like them or not. I think, look, Risto, when healthy, has been good. He has been commensurate with a player getting paid what he gets paid. He might be moved in the summer. He could be a prime candidate to get moved somewhere. But yeah, when a deal happens, you're go for it. Be absolutely critical. You can have your opinion on it. We may disagree, and that's fine. That's cool. That's what sports are all about. It's about opinions and discussing it and agreeing and disagreeing, finding common ground and never finding common ground. That's what it is. Joe says, go get Chychrun. I prefer Shabbat over Chychrun. Shabbat eats a ton of minutes. He's 27. I think he makes a lot of your defensemen better by his presence because of the amount of minutes he can play. 25, 26 minutes a night. And it lessens the workload for Sanheim and York. And by proxy, to me, that makes them more effective as players. So I go with that. Joey B., my man out in Colorado. Thank you, thank you, thank you. From here in Colorado, thank you. Yeah, you got a good player in Sean Walker. He may be a real key acquisition for them. Justin says, Islanders are going to be a tough team coming down the stretch. Yeah, Islanders are playing good. It took a little bit for Patrick Waugh to get the foothold there and get them going. They've now won 4 straight games. They're 4 points back of the Flyers with 2 games in hand. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest threat to the Flyers. I don't think Washington's a threat. I don't think Pittsburgh's a threat. And I really doubt New Jersey is at this point 8 points back. I really don't think so. And, they fire Lindy Ruff. I guess his save percentage wasn't good enough. GM fires the coach because he didn't give him a goalie. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And we'll see what happens with Ryan Johansson as well for the Flyers if he's going to pass through waivers. I imagine he'll absolutely pass through waivers. Andy Goldenberg says to waste an asset on a backup goalie for just this run would be a waste. I'm not sure what he says. 2026, contrary to Danny B's vision. Maybe. But I mean, if you're giving up a 5th round pick for what you feel is an upgrade to play 4 or 5 pretty important games here down the stretch, whether you make the playoffs or not, is a 5th round pick too much to give up for that? I'd rather give up the 5th round pick and have the team make the playoffs and have guys like Tyson Forster, Noah Cates, Cam York, and on down the line, Morgan Frost, and those guys, Owen Tippett, get some playoff experience. Sam Ersson, get some playoff experience. Get a taste of what the playoffs are like, because we see it every year when your team's not in it. You watch it and you go, oh my God, my team's so far away, because you see how insane the playoffs are. So I'll trade a 5th round pick for a mid-round goal. I'm not going crazy. I'm not trading a 3rd for a guy that's going to come in and be able to play 4 or 5 games for me. I can't play Ersson every night. Can't do it. You'll run him right into the ground. J.S. Bach. John Sebastian Bach says the hockey is a crazy game and the business surrounding it is even crazier. Yeah. Johansson can play 4th line center and be effective. I don't know. I haven't watched a ton of Ryan Johansson. He is, like Ant said, he still is good face-off guy. This year, 53% on draws. Last year, he was 59.2%. For his career, 54.1%. Can he play 4th line center? Maybe. Maybe it's an option. Right now, Sean Couturier is playing 4th line center. I said this on Flyers Daily for today's episode. Over this stretch of the 9 of the next 10 games, Sean Couturier can't be relegated to 12 minutes. You're not going to survive it if he's playing 12 minutes a night. I get he is burned out and was overused, but they got to get him playing a more prominent role again. You hope that this management of his minutes over the last couple of weeks can now be ramped back up into a very significant and effective role for this Flyers team. Scott says LA is a team to watch. Philly, another GM who is buddies with Jonesy. Jonesy's buddies with everybody. It's bananas. Absolutely crazy. Everybody, every city he goes into, the GM, the presidents are all seeking him out when he was a broadcaster to bend his ear a little bit. But this is fun again. It's absolutely fun again. We'll get to one more here. D Mako 1. Thank you for doing this show. It's a good day to be a Flyers fan. It's a good day for that they matter again to this degree. Awesome. It's a lot of fun. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll be back Friday with Anthony DeMarco at 4 o'clock on Stick to Hockey Live. We'll have a lot to say on Flyers Daily as well, so check me out there. Everybody, enjoy it. Enjoy the lead up to the deadline at 3 o'clock on Friday, and we'll talk to you next time on Stick to Hockey Live. Have a great night, everybody.